Ever pinch pennies all year for that one family vacation only to feel the budget blues afterwards? If so, I was just like you. After 3 vacationless years, I stumbled on credit card rewards travel and cracked the code to amazing vacations that I could actually afford.
Welcome to Wonderland on Points. In this podcast, you will discover how opening credit cards strategically can save you thousands on travel. We're not just dreamers anymore. We're 2 adventurous moms turning dreams into reality. Join us as we spill all the points and miles secrets.
And contrary to popular belief, you don't have to spend $1 million to earn 1,000,000 points. Traveling on credit card points isn't reserved for those with overflowing bank accounts. It's for everyday people like you and me, learning to turn routine expenses into free travel.
Consider us your points travel guides. This is Wonderland on Points. Let the adventure begin. We are so glad you are joining us for another episode of Wonderland on Points. I am your co-host, Mary Ellen. Joanna is here, and we have a longtime friend of the podcast, Allison from Points to Boarding Pass over on Instagram. Allison is an expert who has been on our show before. She knows everything about every airplane that flies in the sky. She has been on the airplane, and she can tell you the seating configuration for that airplane. So we are so excited to tap into her knowledge today to learn about Air Canada's Aeroplan and how we can really maximize it. Thank you so much for joining us, Allison.
No, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be back.
We love having you on the show. And this is exciting because we have not done an Air Canada episode at all. I feel like both of us know very little about it. I think we learned a little bit at the conference, but this is really about to open a whole world for us. So this past year, you were in Cape Town, South Africa, and you flew there using the Air Canada Stopover program, right? So maybe tell us about the itinerary and how many points you used, and then we can go back and dig into the nitty-gritty of the program at large.
Yeah, so to get to Cape Town, I went kind of a unconventional route than like most people are going to fly. Okay, I just so happened to be in Sao Paulo, right? So I booked Sao Paulo.
As one happens to be in Sao Paulo on a given Tuesday.
I was trying to do an around the world trip without using ANA at the time.
Okay.
I was in Brazil for that. Well, actually, I was in Peru when I made my way to Sao Paulo. But to get to Cape Town, I flew Sao Paulo to Addis Ababa on Ethiopian. And on this one, I did business class for that. And then stayed 3 or 4 nights in Addis, and then flew down to Cape Town on Ethiopian again for that. So I booked that using their Stopover program, 105,000 miles for those 2 flights, and got to spend the weekend in Addis Ababa.
I don't know what that is or where that is. I feel like you just said a bunch of words I've never heard. Maybe this is showing my absolute geographical ignorance. Where is that?
So Addis Ababa is in Ethiopia,
Okay.
which is kind of like just south of Egypt, if you can imagine where Egypt is on Africa.
Yeah, I do remember being homeschooled and having to fill out an empty map of all of the countries in Africa and had to know them at some point. And I probably did fairly well, or my mom would have made me redo it. But do I remember any of those now? Absolutely not.
That's the whole
I
concept.
had to do that same test.
Behind that show, Are You Smarter Than a 5th Grader or 4th Grader, whatever that show was, because we
Not
did
now.
all of that stuff.
I am not now. Maybe I was at one point. It's all gone.
Okay, so you booked a flight from Sao Paulo on Ethiopian Airlines to ultimately Cape Town, but you did a stopover for a couple days before continuing on to Cape Town. But all of that was booked on Air Canada. So this is where it comes into play, airline alliances, airline partnerships. So before we get into specifically how you book something with the Stopover program, chat a little bit about why people should consider booking with Air Canada. Run us through maybe the Star Alliance partners, and then the other airline partners that are not in the alliance? Because they do have partners outside of just Star Alliance.
I would probably argue that Air Canada has the best loyalty program out there. Okay. When
Wow.
it comes to points redemptions. Okay. Because
And
Air
that is
Canada,
big praise because
yeah,
you really know the inside and outs of
yeah.
all the programs.
I mean, when you have over 50 airlines that you can use points for, you can pretty much get anywhere that you want and get almost almost within reason any route that you want to fly for that when there's 50 different airlines that you can take. So you look at just Star Alliance, right? Outside of Air Canada, you get access to United, you get access to Swiss, you get access to ANA, you get access to Ava Air, you get access to Lufthansa, Turkish, and then outside of that alliance, you also get access to Emirates, you get access to Etihad, all great airlines that you can fly to get to all of these different places that you want to go to.
That kind of blows my mind because I do feel like Air Canada is not as talked about in kind of mainstream points and miles. It's not the one you see popping up on Instagram all the time. So I feel like if you told somebody that I was flying Ethiopian Airlines, but I booked it through Air Canada, that would probably make some heads explode. So, and you said 110,000 miles. Where did those come from, if you remember?
I think I transfer from American Express because
Okay.
I try not to transfer from Chase to Air Canada because there's a delay with that, right?
Ooh.
Mm-hmm.
And also, we like to hoard our Chase points for Hyatt hotels. At least that's what we do over
Same.
here. Yeah. American Express,
Same.
we call a renewable resource with Rakuten. We can earn those much faster. Chase points we hoard them like a dragon.
I do really appreciate an instant transfer because there is nothing more stressful than when you hit that button to transfer your hard-earned points from whatever bank's currency to go over to whatever hotel, whatever airline. If there is a delay, and for some, there's a delay of a couple days even, I cannot with that stress. So instant transfer is a big deal. And just before we go on, I want to make sure everyone knows another good thing about Air Canada's Aeroplan is you can pretty much get those points from all the major players. Amex, Chase, Citi, Capital One, Bilt, everybody transfers to them. And so that's another reason that you should really pay attention because you can pool points. You know, if you
Yep.
have some Capital One points or miles, you have some Amex points, you don't have enough of either one, you can send them from both places over there, collect them in one spot, and then use them. So there's a lot of opportunity to earn Aeroplan points. Is it miles or points?
I think they call it points technically.
Okay.
I feel like we're
for
always
that.
interchanging those words and not always
Oh,
correctly.
They're the same thing, effectively, in my mind,
I
at
agree.
least. But you know what's also great about Air Canada being accepted by all of the banks?
Tell us.
Do
Frequent
tell.
transfer bonuses.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yep.
there
You
are
know,
frequent transfer bonuses like twice a year.
oh, see, I feel like when I
Mhm.
see an Air Canada transfer bonus, I don't really think twice about it because it's just, I've never found a flight booked through Air Canada that was somewhere I needed to go, but I also haven't really looked. So yeah,
Well, we're
transfer
going to change
bonuses are
that.
great. Yeah, I think after this episode, well, I need to pump the brakes for a minute because Mary Ellen and I did just book something very exciting that we can't even talk about on this podcast because it's going to be our Wednesday mini episode. So if we spill the beans now, we have nothing to talk about on our Wednesday episode, but we can tell you, Allison, after the recording. But we're going somewhere for my 35th birthday in January using another transfer bonus that just is out there right now. But trying to stick here and not go off on an ADHD tangent, which is very easy for me to do, we talk a ton about either dynamic pricing or fixed award charts when we're talking about all of these different brands. So how does Aeroplan structure its award program?
Air Canada is slightly complicated in the sense that some flights are going to be dynamically priced. This is going to be for Air Canada. This is going to be for Emirates, okay? So if there are two flights on the same day, on the same route, one might be, let's just say, 20,000 points, The other one could be 80,000 points for that.
Wow.
But on Air Canada's partners, they have a fixed reward chart based
Ooh.
on the total distance that you fly, right? So it's if you can find a flight on that day for that route, it's always going to be effectively the same price for that. And Air Canada doesn't do peak or off peak pricing as well. So if you're trying to get to Europe, right, and you want to fly in economy from the East Coast, 35,000 points for that every day.
Okay.
If you're talking about business, then we're talking 60, 70,000
I
points.
just didn't want anybody to get too excited. Although
Yeah,
60
yeah,
or
yeah.
70 is still pretty good.
Especially with a
Talk to us
transfer
about,
bonus.
yeah, for sure, if you can capitalize on one of the transfer bonuses, which you really should be able to. If you have ideas in mind of where you want to go, try to be flexible and hold out for transfer bonuses because they do, like you said, come around pretty regularly. What about one of the things that has held me back in the past? Because I have looked on Air Canada's website. I find it to be a little glitchy sometimes, and that has deterred me a little bit. But taxes and fees. I love that a lot of the US based carriers, when you're going abroad, tend to have lower taxes and fees. What have you found with Air Canada Aeroplan? Are you going to need to shell out a little bit on the higher side for taxes and fees or lower side?
I would call it more like normal average, right? Air Canada does pass on a little bit of those higher taxes and fees, but most of that just tends to be based on where you're trying to come back from. From example, so Europe tends to have a lot more higher taxes and fees with that, and I know we all want to pay as little out of pocket as possible, but I look at the taxes and fees a lot of the time as just the price for playing, right? So if I'm going to pay $100 in my taxes, but I'm getting a $5,000 flight or $1,000 flight at the same time, I'm saving, $900 in the process for that.
For sure. Okay, well, let's talk sweet spots because I imagine you've probably flown them or someone in the alliance through them a number of times. So, both here in the US and then globally as well. What can we be looking for to really get the most value out of this program?
Yeah, so there's a ton of sweet spots, and I'll talk about Europe a lot today just because Europe tends to be where a lot of people want to go for things. But if you want to look at like North America and you want to fly economy, you fly those short flights that are like under 500 miles, right? They can be as low as 6,000 points per passenger for that in economy. And
Wow.
then you get a little bit higher, and that's like North America, which would include like Alaska, Canada, the US, Mexico, and Central America
Oh,
as well. But most of the time, you would expect to use like 10,000 points for an economy flight for the most part for
Sure.
that. So that's like fantastic to use, especially you factor in that transfer bonus as well. Then you're looking almost at single digits
yeah.
for that.
I
Love
love a
So
single digit flight. When I can get
to.
something for under 10,000, no matter where it is, I'm like, yes.
I know it almost approaches, the Southwest territory in
Although
pricing
not
for that.
so much these days. There has to be a
Yeah, that's
sale
true.
these days to get a single digit Southwest flight.
Yeah. So
Annoying.
it is annoying for that. So, but you want to fly to like Europe, right? 35,000 points for economy, maybe 40,000 points, depending on how far you're trying to fly. It's like East Coast to the west side of Europe, 35,000 points. You're trying to get from West Coast to Europe, 40,000 points for that. But even if you start to look at like the Pacific, Japan, Taiwan, Hong Kong, the Philippines, for that, you're still looking at like 35 to 50,000 points for economy
Wow.
for that. And then business class, if someone wants to fly business class, you're talking about 75,000 points for that. Whereas most of the other carriers that you would be flying would be 100,000 points for business class and start at 50,000 points for economy and then go up to like 80 or 90 for that.
Right. This has my wheels turning.
I know. I love thinking about how I could combine points from several different banks because I've been spending a lot of points lately, which is good. We want to earn and burn. And honestly, I had been building up almost too many points. Not that it's too many. I have a lot of places I'd like to go, but I wasn't cashing in, I wasn't burning. And then points lose value over time. There's devaluations that happen with airlines and hotels. So if you're not using your points over time, they actually can become less valuable. So you want to use them as you earn them. So lately I have been cashing in a ton of points. So now it makes me a little nervous when my storehouses get a little bit low. But I love with Air Canada, if I think about, okay, but I do still have a little bit in this program and a little bit in that program. I could combine them over at Aeroplan and get a really nice international flight. So I still have a lot. It gives you a way to combine your points, which is cool.
For sure.
Yeah.
Will you tell us before we get into the stopover program how the business class is on? Have you actually flown Air Canada Metal, or even some of these partners, if you want to dig into what we could get with a 70,000 business class ticket? What are we looking at? You're smiling at me. Is this bad?
I've never flown Air Canada.
You haven't ever. Only partners.
No.
Okay.
Not even in economy, okay? Like, I've literally never flown Air Canada
Funny.
in my life
Okay.
for that. And it's one of my top most recommended programs to redeem points through.
Amazing.
Right? Hilarious.
It makes sense to me because I keep booking all these flights through Alaska.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I book flights all the time, but they're all American flights. I have never actually flown Alaska.
True. So if we're looking at all of the partners that could get you places, all the alliance members that could get you places booking through Air Canada, you're spending about 70,000 miles. Which one, if they're all the same price and they'll all take you somewhere cool, which one should we be looking at for the best business class experience?
Well, that was an interesting question. And it's going to come down to what your biggest priority is. Okay. Is your biggest priority the most convenient routing, right? And we're talking about flying with kids. Most of the time, we're going to go for that convenience routing for that.
Absolutely.
So if you're talking about business class, you get your lie flat seat, you're going to have a good sleep, right? Maybe the food, maybe the service slightly changes, but at least you still get the lie flat for that. Now, if you want to go like experience wise and you don't mind slightly inconveniencing yourself in the process for that, if I was to like target one of those and I'm trying to like fly to Europe, for example, I would try and do Turkish. They tend to have a better onboard product for things. I would try and fly United for that. They have one of the better products to Europe for that. Swiss is going to be launching their new business class product from Boston later, I think next month actually for that. So that'll be a really good option to get there as well. The Swiss business class right now is pretty solid for that, but their IFE is like tiny. It's made for ants, right? So it's like it's 2025. I need my 60-inch screen in my business class seat for me.
Well, if you're going to pay for business class, that makes sense.
No, 100% for that. But if you want to get to like Japan, for example, United would be one of the most common. ANA would be another really good one as well to fly. And then I'm always partial to Ava Air as well to get to Taiwan.
And all of these theoretically can be found for this similar price point because of this fixed award chart.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's dig into the meat of the stopover program because it's very unique. Not every airline has a stopover program. It's a really cool opportunity to see more than one country, more than one city on a big trip. To really maximize, we're not just going to South Africa, we're going to spend a couple days in a whole nother country, which is just awesome and for hardly anything out of pocket. So go ahead and give us kind of the initial rules maybe that we need to know. How much does it cost? Is it a free stopover or does it cost a little bit? Give us the basics.
At its most basic level, the stopover program allows you to fly from one region to another region, stay for up to 45 days, and then continue on in that same region or somewhere else. Okay. The one kind of key restriction that you have to know is that second flight cannot be longer than the first flight that you take, right? So let's just say, for example, you flew Boston to Zurich. and you stayed for a couple of days and then you wanted to go on to Tokyo. You would kind of have to book that separate flight separately, right? From, let's just say, Zurich to Tokyo, because that's going to be over double the distance of the original flight that you booked. So most of the time you're going to fly a short segment or another like medium segment on that.
This might be stupid. Do you have to go somewhere completely different, or could you theoretically go home or back to the United States?
It has to be somewhere different. It can't be back to the origin for that. And you can't do a stopover within North America either.
Okay. Good to know. Good to know. So you obviously they would be crazy to let you go back to the city you left from, but you can't go to the country you left from either.
Yeah, you wouldn't be able to do that. It has to be from like to a separate third destination.
I assumed so, but I was like, if there's a way to get back over on our side of the pond without the extra taxes and fees and extra points, that feels like a life hack. It's too good to be true. So
that would be too good to be true.
Tell us about the region. So you said it has to be a different region. So give us a basic understanding of what constitutes a region.
Air Canada has 4 regions for their award chart. They've got North America, they've got South America, okay? And then they've got what they call the Atlantic region, right? Which is going to be all of Western Europe. It's going to be the Middle East, India, and Africa. And then they're going to have the Pacific region, which is going to be China, Japan, Southeast Asia, and Oceania, like Australia, New Zealand, Tahiti.
Okay. So you can go somewhere else in the same region. You just can't go back to the country that you came from?
Correct. You can't go back to the country that you started from. So it would have to be like Boston to Frankfurt and then on to Istanbul.
Okay. Just making sure. So we're not excluded from going other places in Europe, even though it's all the same region.
Correct.
Okay. Also give us an idea of what this costs. Is there any kind of a fee to do the stopover?
Yeah, some programs have a free stopover program like Alaska, but Air Canada does not have a free program, unfortunately. The good news is it's only an additional 5,000 points to do it.
Very reasonable.
Very.
Okay, I love that.
That's why you got to do it.
Absolutely.
So it sounds very intimidating to me, finding flights that work for the stopover program. All of that just seems a little intimidating. So how would you start a search that you ultimately wanted to book through Air Canada? Do you use a different site first, like seats.aero, to get you started, and then move over to the Air Canada site once you know already what flights you want? Or do you search through Air Canada?
Yeah, I mean, if you would have asked me like 2 years ago, I would have said, you got to go directly to Air Canada to be able to do it. And even 2 years ago, you couldn't book on the Air Canada website. You had to call in, like it's 1960 to be able to do that, right? And I'm a millennial. I had to avoid getting on a phone whenever possible.
At all costs.
With people. So, yeah, at all costs, like literally. I will avoid doing things if I have to make a phone call. I just hate it that much.
I feel that in my bones.
Yeah, but what I've always found the easiest way to like search and like find these stopovers for that is utilize a tool like seats.aero, Roam, point.me, points.yeah, whatever is like your flavor that you like to use for that. And I always like to focus on the longer flight first, right? So if I wanted to go back to Zurich, for example, I would plug into seats.aero, USA to Zurich on whatever date ranges that I wanted, right? And then once I found like that nonstop flight into Zurich, right, I'd be like, okay, I'm going to go verify that on the Air Canada website, right? Okay, great. It's available on Air Canada. I know I can book that. Well, okay, I want to do a stopover. Let's stay like 3 days in Zurich and then go on to somewhere else, right? So then what I would do is like, I don't really care where I go, right? I just need to find a flight that I can book through that. And it doesn't have to be on the same airline that you initially book on either, right? So if you fly into Zurich on Swiss, right, you could fly out of Zurich on Turkish, for example, for that. So then I would just put into like seats.aero a couple of days after I got to Zurich. I would put in Zurich to Europe, for example, if I wanted to stay just in Europe. And I would filter just for Air Canada in this case, just to see like, okay, I can go to London, I can go to Dublin, I can go to Frankfurt, Munich, whatever that I would want to do. And then I would take that information, whatever one that I found that I was like, okay, this sounds exciting. I would take that back to Air Canada, search just that flight, confirm that flight's available. Then I would try and put it all together. Okay. And it can be a little bit weird the first time that you run it. You can't just search. It's not going to be on the website that says Stopover program. It's not going to give you that, right? So what you have to use is the multi-city tool for that. And when you go to that multi-city tool, you'll still put in the point A to point C, right? So if I was doing Prague as my second destination, I would search. If I found Boston to Zurich, I would search Boston to Prague, right? And then it'll give you the option of saying how many days you want to stay, right? So if I wanted to stay 3 days, I would put in 3 days, right? And it'll also ask you where you want the stopover city to be in, right?
Wow.
And I would put in Zurich for that, right? And that's why it would give you infinite possibilities and errors if you just was like, okay, here to here, this city is the stopover. Okay, that didn't work, right? That's why I like to start in that seats.aero or something that helps me drill down what I'm actually looking for rather than trying to do 20,000 things on the Air Canada website instead.
Right. And just to clarify this for people, like let's say all of these are within a distance that this would be a 35,000 economy flight. Like you are getting that first flight and then you're staying for 5,000 points and then you're getting that second flight and that is all one cost. That's the 35,000 plus the 5. And that's just that like blows my mind that that's even possible and that you can do it online. Because I thought you had to call for this, like you do with some of the other programs, and everybody avoids a phone call. And so this just seems very, very exciting. Do you feel like you need a paid version of Seats.aero to find this easily, or is this going to work with the basic version of everything?
It depends on how far out you're trying to search, right? So if you are someone that only plans your life within 60 days, right? The free version of seats.aero is going to work great for you.
That's like going to
If
be a
you're
no
a
for me.
planner, yeah, if you're a planner and plans further out than 60 days, right? You are going to have the paid version of that, of the program to be able to do that.
Okay. And I'm assuming that you suggest when people are searching that they filter by Air Canada. Yes, not just because if you're just searching the locations, I would say that would probably get a little overwhelming to sift through. And I do think we have a lot of listeners coming in regularly who are new to searching in general. So I just want to make sure if they go to a tool today that they have exactly what they need to plug everything in.
Yeah, you can definitely filter by just Air Canada for that. I might even encourage people to keep United on as well, because I found that the results in seats.aero for United are a little bit more reliable than Air Canada, right? Sometimes the Air Canada ones might be um, like 5 hours ago or 14 hours ago or something. And United will be like, okay, it's only 2 hours ago for that. So that kind of just gives you an indication of what else might be available through Air Canada by looking at that United stuff.
That's a great tip.
I want to clarify, and I know earlier you said your stopover can be up to 45 days. What is the minimum amount of time? Because I'm thinking, okay, I just booked a flight that I pieced together coming home from Norway. I couldn't find any airline that would give me exactly what I wanted. So instead, I'm booking 2 separate flights with a connection in Amsterdam. But could I have done this through Air Canada Stopover? I'm thinking probably not, because I'm only having a couple hours in that middle place rather than at least 24 hours. Is that their rule? Does it need to be at least 1 day?
Yeah, it has to be at least 24 hours, okay? And it'll literally look 24 hours in advance for that. Okay. It's a hard and fast rule. It won't populate anything else for you.
I wonder if people, to save points, would just try to spend 24 hours in an airport. I feel like people have done it.
I feel like you are that person, Joe.
I would do it. I would do it. Have you done this, Allison?
Yes, I have. I've done it before for that in Auckland before. Wow. I just stayed 24 hours.
I hope you had some good lounge access.
Way before. I had zero lounge access when I did this. It was literally during COVID too.
Oh my gosh.
So everything was shut down. The only thing that was open was McDonald's. And even then it was like rough for that. So yeah, I didn't have anything.
Oh my gosh. I feel like that's great content though. You don't really do the content thing, but if you did 24 hours in an airport to save points or cash, however people are doing it, is I say that's a story. I feel like that's a podcast episode waiting to happen, because I would 100%
I feel like this
do
is
this.
a challenge. I feel like this is a challenge for 2026
Heck
now.
yes.
24 hours in an airport. Let me choose a good airport though.
Yes. It
should be a good airport, not a bad airport. Okay. So if anyone wants me to do the challenge, let me know and then tell me what airport to go to, because I'll do it.
I'm invested.
I'll do it.
We both want you to do this. And then come back and tell us about it. That would be a good mini episode.
Depending on how good the airport is, I'll do it with you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm thinking Doha. I'm thinking Singapore, Dubai. I'm open though. I am negotiable.
Okay.
Love it.
All right. Hopefully you get some messages. You guys can find Allison points to boarding pass if you want to get in her DMs and tell her to do this.
Okay, I want to talk about when things go awry. Hopefully you have not experienced it much, because I know you don't want to call them on the phone. But how is the customer service for Aeroplan? Because I feel like with something like a Stopover program, even though they've made it simple where you can do it just on the website, still seems like it'd be a situation where customer service may be involved at some point. Have you ever had any issues when you booked through Aeroplan?
I personally haven't experienced any issues booking through Air Canada, Aeroplan, and none of the clients that I've supported have really had a lot of issues. There's only been one major issue, and it wasn't even related to the Stopover program on that. I do know you'll want to pack your patience when you call Air Canada for that. It's not that their customer service is like horrible, okay? But it is going to take a minute if you are unlucky to be able to get them on the phone. So do expect to wait maybe an hour or two to be able to get on the phone with them.
I hate that so much.
And then you have to listen to the annoying hold music the whole time.
Oh, I really avoid some airlines, and I probably shouldn't. But just because I'm worried about if and when something were to go wrong, I don't know that it's an airline that I want to have to deal with the customer service. I don't know. I get nervous about that when it's places that are really known for great customer service. That means a lot. And I am truly more likely to book with, whether it be hotels, airlines, whoever, if they're known to have really good customer service, or my favorite, when I can just chat with them online without even calling them, like Amex
glorious.
Chat. I love to talk to the people in the Amex Chat. I do not want to call them.
Yeah. I totally agree with that. I do not like airlines or hotels with bad customer service. Mine is Turkish. I avoid trying to call or book through Turkish for that. I also avoid booking through Avianca unless I know it's a flight I'm going to take and it's within the next 30 days for that.
Yeah.
Anything else I avoid Avianca like the plague.
Me and Joy from Savvy Travel Mama were helping a mutual friend book a trip to Costa Rica, and she used Avianca, and then she had to cancel it. Oh my goodness, with this it was her first points and miles experience. First one ever. And she doesn't want to do a thing with points and miles ever again, because trying to get them on the phone, trying to get to someone who spoke English, even the person who spoke English didn't understand her. And also, ultimately, I think she ended up spending a lot in cancellation fees. I think she gave up. But now know, because I had no idea. I'd never heard that. I did not know that that is something we should caution against. But now we know.
I'm thinking of Devin and Kelsey over at the Point Sisters because they were specialists when A&A had the around the world trips, and they would laugh. I think they were basically on a first name basis. They're like invited to Christmas with some of the reps from A&A because they spent so much time on the phone with them. But I know they always said they had a great experience, that the people were super knowledgeable, so helpful. It just makes me laugh. They kind of specialized for a while in that airline and spent so much time talking to those folks.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Makes such a huge difference. Every conversation I've ever had with anyone who works at Alaska has been a 10 out of 10. I will call them, but they also have a text thing where you can do things via text too. And that is nice. I don't know how we derailed and got over here. Let's bring it back in. We did talk about sweet spots already, but is there anything underrated, any aspects of this program, any underrated deals that you can think of with Aeroplan?
Deal-wise, I mean, it's just the Stopover program, right? Because let's say you want to go to North America and ultimately your final destination is Singapore, right? You're going to pay that USA to Singapore pricing, and that includes the stopover. So you could stop over in Europe, and you're going to save points in the process to be able to do that. And that's why I just love the Stopover program, because I think at least on mine, I saved like 30,000 points on that versus booking two separate flights for that. Sure, I had to pay an extra 5K points for that, still saved 30,000 points from it. So that was a win for me.
Yeah, 100%. And I really feel like where this feels like it shines for people is probably the business class, because we all know we can get to Europe sometimes with like Virgin or Flying Blue for like, 10,000, 15,000 points in economy. Like those exist. But to have two destinations and to be going further and to be paying 70,000-ish overall, 75,000 after you throw in the 5 for the stopover, to have business class on both of those fairly long flights. Like I just feel like that's where this to me really shines, even though obviously we have a lot of people who are trying to fly more and not necessarily do the bougie thing. I think this is one that like I now am going to put in my back pocket for like the fancy trip that I hope to get my husband to take when I can finally convince him to cross the ocean in an airplane. So like that's where this is really sticking in my mind, is the value is astronomical.
And you could also think of it as it increases the access of award space that you have, right?
Yeah.
Because you might be trying to fly somewhere that doesn't have any award space on that nonstop route, or just even a one-stop, right? But you're effectively splitting up your flights to be able to do that, right?
Yeah.
So now you have access to maybe more space than would be available just by trying to do a stopover program.
Absolutely. Now, can you do it in reverse? Like, obviously you can't do it connected, but I'm assuming you could do it going home, but you're just starting here and then bouncing backwards, stopping somewhere else on your way home.
Yeah, so you could do that for sure. So let's say you were like coming back from Asia, right? You're in Manila, right? For example, you could do Manila to Tokyo, stay a couple days there, and then fly back to the US.
Yes. I love this. I feel like someone going on their honeymoon can stop in 3 places over the course of a couple of weeks, all for this 140,000, 150,000 per person, depending on distance.
It seems like a cool way these days, and there are other ways, but to do an around the world trip. A&A took away their kind of famous around the world option, but it seems like you could kind of piece together an around the world trip with Aeroplan. Talk to us a little bit before we wrap up with Aeroplan about family pooling, because we already mentioned how you can get points from so many different spots, but I also really love any airline that does family pooling, because even just recently I booked flights for my family and I didn't have enough points. My husband had some points. I had some points. So he booked 3 people. I booked 2 people separately. On the back end, I'm going to have to link our reservations. But something that has easy family pooling is really great.
Yeah, absolutely. Like that's what's awesome about being able to pool your points and have your family, just like you mentioned, you've got points and let's just say Chase, right? And then your husband doesn't have Chase points, so you can't transfer to his account. He can't transfer to yours, but he only has them in Capital One, right? So he can transfer his points to Air Canada. You guys pool your points together, and ultimately you get all the points that you need. It's also great if you don't have enough points with something else and you're trying to piece it together for your family on that. So points pooling is great because it just gives you access to more points without having to book flights under different reservations too, right?
I will
Yes.
throw out
Amen.
one little bit of caution that I never really thought about, but I learned at the Travel More conference when we were listening to Richard from Built. It was interesting because Built does not have any kind of family pooling, and everybody wants that, right? People are asking, can you pool points? We want to pool points. And he said, no, and we will never, because it opens up fraud risk. He said places that allow you to pool points tend to have more fraud issues than places that don't allow you to pool points. I thought that was very interesting. Hopefully, none of us will ever have to deal with that, with our points getting stolen. That is a thing that you hear about. If you're new to this points and miles world, people, because points are worth money, they're like real money, they do get stolen sometimes. And I pray none of us have to deal with that. But it was interesting that he mentioned specifically places that allow you to pool points are a little more at risk for that.
Yeah, that actually happened to Air Canada when they first started their points pooling, right? So I think it was within 72 hours of making that possible online, they had to turn it off. They sunsetted the program because they had that problem, right? And then it was like 6 months or something before they brought it back. But just like you said, fraud.
Oh my gosh, hopefully they brought in some super geniuses to put up some security there. I assume that would be the only way they would have been up for opening it back up after something so embarrassing happened. Okay, Allison, well, this has given us a whole lot to think about. My wheels are turning for sure. I don't need to be planning any more trips at the moment, but man, it makes me excited for the future. Let's talk about where you are headed next on points. Anywhere fun? Any great award tickets that you've managed to snag?
Um, so looking internationally, I actually only have the rest of this year planned out, okay?
Wow.
I have one thing I think I'm gonna do next year, and I'm gonna go to, like, Chamonix with my family next summer, I think, for that. But the next trip that I've got coming up, I'm doing Scandinavia and I'm doing the Baltics. So
Yay!
Awesome.
I'm really, really excited about this. It's gonna be a learning experience for me, okay?
Well,
I'm not gonna be able to stay at Hyatt's the whole
no,
time.
have you
Right?
listened to our episode about choice hotels in Scandinavia? Because they're
I
actually amazing. Okay, I'm just going to tell
Okay.
you,
You know what?
shameless
I did
plug.
look at a bunch of them. I did look at a bunch of them when I was planning it, and I was like, "Man, I'm gonna have to join Choice to do this," and then I just ended up not going to those destinations
Mm,
that it was
Avoided
at,
them
and,
altogether. I
I am
literally
no,
like,
I wasn't avoiding it.
today I moved all of my City Strata Elite points that I earned from my welcome offer over to Choice and booked a bunch of hotels in Norway on, I love the 1-to-2 ratio. City transfers to Choice from 1-to-2, so 80,000 of my City Strata Elite points became 160,000 Choice points, and I instantly used them. It was almost kind of sad. I earned them. I worked so hard to earn
yeah.
them, and then poof, they were gone because hotels are booked.
You know when it won't be sad is when you're eating that fantastic breakfast spread that they give you for free with all the sausages and the breads and the cheeses and all of the things. It's amazing.
So where in Scandinavia are you going?
I'm, doing Norway and Finland, so I'm doing Helsinki and Bergen.
Oh,
Bergen is where our episode's about. Yes, guys, you want to know something interesting? Okay.
yes.
Our relative, like a million greats back, Haken Hakensen, king in Norway. We are from his mistress's line, though, so we are not, in fact, royal. He was crowned. His coronation ceremony was in Bergen. So if I ever get over there, going to try to figure out exactly where that happened, and then I'm going to stand there, and it's going to be awesome.
And put a little crown on.
Awesome.
will not do
Yeah.
that. We can't. We're illegitimate. No crowns for me.
All right, Allison. Well, one last question. What welcome offers have you taken advantage of lately? There's been a whole host of new cards that have been rolled out over the past 7 months or so. Have you taken advantage of any of these new cards, or have you signed up for any, old faithfuls that people love to sign up for?
Yeah, I mean, earlier this year, I was playing the chase game pretty hard on that. So I've taken a little bit of break with that. I've been trying to get approved for the personal platinum the last couple of months. I cannot get approved more than 50,000 points for the bonus. So I'm not going forward with my application.
No.
Yeah, because you can easily get 100, 150. And for some reason, it's just 50 for me right now. So I'm just waiting and biding my time with American Express. But I'm about to apply for that City Strata Elite, is what I'm
Ooh.
going to do.
Yes.
Mm,
Yep.
yeah.
That's on the radar. Obviously, Mary Ellen just told you she has it. That's a good one. It's a good one.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we appreciate you so much. As I've mentioned a couple times already, you guys can find Allison at Points to Boarding Pass on Instagram. Where else can people find you and or work with you? Is that an option for the average person?
Yeah, absolutely. You can work with me. I'm mostly found on Instagram, so just shoot me a DM. In my profile, there's a link to my website as well on that. But yeah, I do award bookings. I do consult calls. So if we want to strategize a trip together, we can absolutely do that. You need help with credit cards, can do that as well. But I'm mostly a points expert.
And I have to
Yes,
say,
you are. And we love having you on.
if I was going to choose one person in the entire points and miles world with my own money to do a consultation with for an award booking, it would be Allison. So I'm just going to, she doesn't pay us. Okay. We don't get a commission from this, but if you want to book a trip and you need some help doing it, I would trust my money with Allison.
Amen. Amen. And I think that's a great place to leave this. Allison, thank you for being here. We appreciate you.
Thank you so much for the kind words and having me on today.
Okay,
Bye,
you're going to have to
everybody.
come back soon and tell us about 24 hours in an airport.
Yes, and then Mary Ellen's coming with me.
There
though.
you go. Bye, everybody. If you enjoyed this show today, please consider writing us a review or clicking 5 stars wherever you listen to your podcasts. And please subscribe and follow along so that you never miss an episode.
You can follow the podcast on Instagram or YouTube at Wonderland on Points Podcast. You can find me on Instagram at Family Travel for the Win with the number 4.
And you can find me on Instagram at Points to Wonderland.
If you're thinking about getting a new travel rewards credit card, consider using the links in our show notes. Using our links helps to support us and keep our podcast going so we can provide you with all the latest tips and tricks when it comes to traveling on points.
And if you aren't sure which card is right for you, shoot us an email at wonderlandonpoints@gmail.com, and we would be happy to walk you through a free card consultation. That's also a great place to send us all of your comments and questions. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you here next time.